Good.
Going sort of along a similar line of thought that we were pursuing with, like, what can be done to pursue change.
Yeah.
What do you think? I asked you, like, what the role of developers is. What about on the other side, the role of the players?
I got you. Yeah. Do you want us to watch your stuff? Yeah. We'll be here. Yeah. No problem. One of so solutions to the problem. One thing that you constantly hear people talk about is diversifying game developers, right? So adding more women, adding more people of color, right? That's not gonna work. I'm just gonna keep it all the way real. That's not gonna work, because we've seen, time and time again, the day, like back even in like the 90s, whenever this thing was building itself, you had women that would come in and they were hired to create games for girls. And they were essentially forced to create these very stereotypical kinds of, create Barbie, girls like Barbie. So then, just game developers don't have a sense of what gamers want. They've never asked. They're just making these assumptions because they're reverting back to their own stereotypical, assumptions about the world. They're reverting back to, their socially constructed reality, what they see women as, what they think about like people of color. But a quick focus group would have showed that girls like playing G.I. Joe, they like playing, those kinds of things. They could have just said, oh, interesting. They just wanted to see more of them, more of themselves, like within those games. They like Call of Duty. They would just like to see some female soldiers. They would like to see those things. So it's not even like grand sweeping changes that they would even have to do, right? And even when you incorporate women and people of color, you can't just, you have to have an intentional effort to really pay attention to their contributions. You have to listen to what they're saying. You have to really factor in their feedback. So you're all at the table. They can't be overshadowed. If they're speaking, somebody's cutting them off. If they say something, if they have a good idea, just because the other dudes at the table didn't think about that, or can't process or fathom what she just said, it's dismissed. So that's like a huge problem. So you can bring these people to the table all day long, but if there's not an intentional effort to allow their voices to be heard and to be included, it's not going to work. And even you've got these folks, a lot of, especially like on the indie scene, these folks who are, doing it themselves, generating money, generating fans, doing a lot of this work themselves. They have to work twice as hard as their white male counterparts. So for instance, let's say somebody has like a great idea about like a game or something. They might get seed and startup money, from this company that's like, oh, it's a great idea. Here's some money to see what you can do. Those folks of color, those women, they're going to ask, well, what did you do to develop it? They're going to find a way to like pick holes, because those folks just can't fathom the system. People who are in control and in charge of the system, the gatekeepers, can't fathom women of color can create and produce something. That's just, it's like just totally disrupting like their reality, because, these people should just be relegated, to these spaces. So, we have to like overcome so much just to level the playing field, if you will. There are so many barriers, systematic barriers that are in place, that are keeping these folks from the table, right?
Yeah.
And also from creating their own tables. And then even before you reach that point, think about, the pipeline, essentially, of, a lot of young girls are interested in, science and technology and engineering. They're interested in those things at younger ages. But as they grow, they're exposed to the world. Girls don't do that. Oh, that's not ladylike. Oh, that's for boys. So, they're constantly hearing that they're pursuing something that's not for them. And then that's reinforced in our families. When families, make the comment, well, being raised differently. Whereas, we'll let the little boy play and tinker with that, but the little girl, oh, you're getting dirty. You need to get, so it's a huge factor, and it starts like from that age. So you're losing all these girls. You're losing all these people of color. You're losing all these folks as they're getting older, right? And so, and then once you're in schools, like, you got to think about even the reality of like a lot of folks, you could have these really bright and smart kids in some really, really poor school districts where they don't have like a focus like on science and math and technology and engineering. So they don't get exposed to that stuff maybe until later, right? And they may be in high schools that don't offer AP chemistry or AP computer science or AP whatever. So here you have, you have all these layers that even before you reach the point of even applying for that job, you're weeding them out. You're losing them. College, you got standardized tests. You got to get in. Then you have to survive once you get there. So I'm on a rant right now. I'm sorry. Stop me if you need to, but I'm just sitting here thinking about how impossible it is. Because I hear all the time, game developers always say, we'd love to diversify our teams. They are just not in the applicant pool. And I'm like, you know what? I get that. And then I tell them this story. I tell them where you have to think about those few people that made it, at least to that applicant pool. You got to think about what they went through. And then they scrutinize every little thing on their application. Well, they didn't do an internship at Google. They didn't go to school at MIT. They didn't, do a whole host of kinds of things. So they're thinking that they're less than candidates, that they're not equal to. And ain't nobody gonna give no color folks no chance like that. You're not just getting ready to open the door and let them in. They have to prove themselves doubly and triply all the time. And even women, it's even more like that burden and that standard is even higher to reach that point. So then you have to, you're welcome, no problem. So you have to, and thinking about that applicant pool, whenever I talk to these developers, whenever I talk to people that are in the industry, I ask them, what are you doing essentially to grow your own applicant pool? Are you investing money into these schools? Are you going and doing programs like after school programs? Are you going to your inner city? You're in San Francisco. Have you gone to Oakland, to invest, to start like a coding program, to start, in investing so that you can have those applicants, once they've graduated, like from college. So most of them haven't. They aren't even thinking about those things because they don't really want to diversify. They just hope magically that women and people of color can overcome all this shit that they have to go through in their life. All these microaggressions, all this overt and covert racism and sexism, all these barriers to surviving the fucking police, even surviving rape, surviving all these things that they have to go through, and to hope that you can at least make it and still be unshaken, strong. Can't have any, like, there are no weaknesses you can have. Like, you have to be just this perfect vessel. And people don't even realize your holistic life, like that's what got you to that point. And then you're still scrutinized. You can't mess up. One time you're gone. Last hired, first fired, all the time. So I think that there has to be, it has to be more of a matter of just putting a job ad out and hoping that the people will apply. There are a lot of levels and a lot of steps in here that have to be overcome before we reach that point where we can even diversify the table. So a lot of people are creating their own tables, but again, they don't receive the support that those other people who created their own tables are receiving as well. So I don't mean to be doom and gloom and sound like impossible, because I know it just sounded like, oh, there's no way to fix it, but it is. But we have to put that burden on those companies and the people in the industry to have to be invested. If they're really trying to do something, I'm like, you got to start in those schools, elementary school programs, get those kids interested, making sure that their after school programs are just as valuable and fruitful as those kids in those good neighborhoods and areas and districts. So I know that was long. I'm sorry I was ranting. It's more than just, it's a lot to that story.
Yeah.
It's a whole lot. And I think people need to know that. I think people, they're just like, well, we don't have that. Even in academia, I get asked the question a lot, like, how do we diversify our applicant pool? How do we hire women and people of color? There are no applicants. I'm like, it doesn't start right there at that, after you get the PhD, then where are they? No, we don't get PhDs. We don't. So if we've made it here, you better be glad we still alive, because ain't no telling what we went through just to reach that point, just to make it there. So I tell them, I was like, you even if you have to grow your own, you need to go and have an intentional effort. You have to put resources and money, and the people who are already out there, support them. Show that you actually care. I'm sorry, I'm ranting. Rant's over.
Are you sure?
Rant's over. I'm sorry.